I can hear.
Well,
Good.
thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome. What's your name? Mac?
My name is Mac McLaughlin. Yes.
Mac. Okay.
And
Good
so,
Irish name.
yes, absolutely. And I run Free the Kink, and we're a community. We're several communities. We're 12 different communities within like the BDSM kink communities,
Mm-hmm.
and we specialize. Or we don't specialize. We try to give our number one goal is to give everyone a voice,
Right.
within the community. So, John, let me ask you. I want to make sure. Is it Marchini? Am I saying that wrong?
Marchini.
Perfect.
Like Chianti. Is it okay if I smoke?
Absolutely.
Okay. Where are you? Out in the mountains. I see
I'm
mountain
in
time. So.
Las
Where?
Vegas. Las Vegas is
Las
where
Vegas.
home is.
Okay.
Right now, I'm down in Arizona. So I don't know if you're familiar with a little town north in Arizona called Lake Havasu City.
I have no idea. I've been to Sedona. Is it
Okay.
Sedona there? No. Is it? Yeah. Yeah. I've been there, passing through it. Like out west a couple of times. I just drove out a couple of times. So
Where are you located at?
I'm in New York City.
New York.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate doing this. What we're trying to do with Wellness Wednesdays is bring people, and you've been around the kink community for a long time, obviously.
Oh wow, yeah.
And I think that we find a lot of people think that they can self-therapy, whatever you want to call it, self-diagnose, and we're trying to bring it to the attention that kink is not therapy,
Mm-hmm.
and when you need help, you need to reach out to people. So we started looking at the CAP professionals at NCSF, obviously one of our main partners, if you will, and so we're just excited about doing this.
That's good. Yeah, because I do. A lot of times people think about sort of BDSM as therapeutic because it can be very therapeutic. But you're right, it can be no substitute for like for instance, don't want to be repeating. There is that there's a line between re-traumatizing yourself and therapeutically doing kink to help from past shit. But most of the time, it's like the people come to me. It's not about. Oh, I'll wait until we start. I'm just going to ramble off onto me, whatever.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go ahead and get it started. So, John Marchini, thank you so much for joining us for Wellness Wednesday.
You're welcome.
Our membership is comprised of from littles to dominant, submissive to master slave to just top to bottoms. I mean, we have every one of our members is different and unique, and it's spread across from very new people just coming in to people who've been in the lifestyle for 30 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
And our whole goal with the Wellness Wednesday is to bring professionals like yourself to come and give our folks just some advice and to get them to better understand. I mean, mental health is something that we know is not. It's amazing that in 2023 we're still trying to get people to understand that mental health is important and that you don't have to be alone.
Yeah. I think that became like for a lot of people, like over lockdown, that was something that came before people were reaching out to. Like the mental health became a bit more acceptable, and it is strange to say that in like 2023. Oh yeah, now you're.
It really is
acceptable.
If you don't mind, introduce yourself and kind of your practice and what you're all about.
Well, I'm a clinical licensed clinical social worker. I've been I came to this late. Like I don't know, many therapists do that. But I came to it late. I was in the music industry. I played in bands, DJ most of my life. I'm not from the United States. I'm from Ireland. I lived quite a few places. Yeah, I moved here like '95, and when I came over, I started working for the record company. It turned out the record company I'd been signed to when I was playing in bands, and that was it. I just had enough. I was like, oh my god, this is the reason why we didn't make it. All the things on the other side after playing, it's like so. I left that because I was in the marketing department. Realized I don't want to be selling soap powder, which was pretty much the way I was doing. didn't know what to do, and I had I just had this notion I wanted to be a therapist. I went back to school and got my degree. My first job out of social work school, I started the day before 9/11 with the fire department in New York, and I stayed there for like 13 years. And during that time, I was doing a lot of addiction work. So I got plenty of training. That's one of the reasons why I was out in Arizona. I did a training in sex addiction with Patrick Carnes, and I realized after a while that this really isn't my thing, because um, to me it was a little judgmental, and it was so. And at the time, I felt very alone with that, because I didn't know of any other community of therapists that were like coming from a sex positive place. So I just wandered into doing, like, because I was licensed as or certified as TASAC through the sex addiction thing. People come to me, and I find that people who were coming to me as addicts, saying they were addicts, I was like, they were fine. Yeah, talking to them, and it was more that they had just been either busted with their kink or hadn't told anybody about it. So they were just coming thinking that there's something wrong with them because of what everybody else was telling them. And like, it is just anything. Like, it could be, nothing, not spectacular out there kinks. It's just people coming because they were ashamed about their sexuality. And one of the things I learned pretty early was, like, if there's a name for it, somebody's done it. So, like, I was talking to people about things, and people who came to me initially as, identifying as addicts, just was a little bit of therapy and self-acceptance, are able to say, okay, yeah, so this is what I enjoy. It's a bit of a shock to my partner or a bit of a shock to my family, but this is what I enjoy, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Absolutely.
That's how I started into it, and to I've just become more and more people come to me with issues around kink, and I've been doing
Let
it
me
for
ask
yeah.
you, that kind of brings me into my first question, because we
Mm-hmm.
hear, I mean, look, we all know that the morality around us, and that, as for kinksters, and I'm a highly sadistic in my kink. My
Mm-hmm.
beautiful slave, the Kinky Smurf, is a big heavy masochist, and we get told all the time that there's something wrong with us. And we've been called everything from perverts to the world's worst people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
why? What is it about? And maybe you can't answer this. Maybe no one can answer this. But what is it about the world that can't understand that these are just ways that we express ourselves? It's just a way of expression.
There's and I'll remember the name before the end of this, but there's an article written in 1980s by this wonderful woman from, I believe she's in Detroit, but she's talking about sexuality in general. And one of those things is, she says, is like, if you're a cis white man and a cis white woman, and you're straight and you're married, yeah, that's okay to have sex. But anything else apart from that is getting a bit dodgy. So it's like anything below that, the standard of cis white man, cis white woman being married, and anything else is strange. So it's just the idea of, like, and she had the thing, like, she compared the food, like, people have different tastes in food. People have different tastes in anything, but like, when it comes to sex, somehow that's not it's not acceptable. I think a lot of it's to do with well, religion, and then there's the whole idea of trying to controlling women and their sexuality, and anybody. So yeah, so anyone who's not not what is considered to be normal standard practices is a bit odd. And, like, when you think about, even with therapy, it's like 50 years ago, if you were someone who's gay had a mental illness, and so that's a lot more acceptable now. Like, it's certainly, and I think kink is probably where where being gay was 50 years ago. That's what kink is. It's like that, where it's like people are starting to come out about it, but it's still still frowned upon. And through, like, there's so many, like, even within court system. Those like kink that's used against in divorces has like hurt a lot of families, and so it's been it's weaponized.
Yep.
So it's and I think it's like people are a lot more kinky than you would think. There's certainly a lot more than that people acknowledge.
Absolutely. It's interesting because I've had the pleasure of meeting literally thousands of kinksters, and they come from every life, and it's people that you just wouldn't expect. They seem like the most church going people over here, but when they get in the bedroom, it's a whole nother story. But they don't want to talk about it, and something I wanted to ask is, I had someone say something to me a couple weeks ago that I found interesting. He said that all kinks are tied to some type of past trauma. And for me, I don't believe that. I don't see some of my kinks, I have no trauma that started it, or at least that I can think of. I just happen to think that's sexy, or I like that. Is there any truth to that all kinks are tied to some trauma?
I do. I think if you're saying all kinks are tied to some trauma, it's such a wide definition of trauma that like you'd say that everything's tied to trauma, which really it is, because nobody had a perfect childhood, and so everybody has like there's one definition of trauma being like less than ideal, and like it's like everybody has something. So I don't think that you can pin somebody's kink on a past trauma. I think that's like there is research that suggests that like most kinks are in place by the time somebody turns 10. That's already there. People know what their kinks are. There's some form of it. There are it gets difficult when you get when you have people who have had traumatic experiences. Well, when they have that traumatic experiences and they become sexualized. And again, that's not necessarily not necessarily a bad response to it.
Yeah.
Like for instance, like the hardest is when someone's been abused as a kid, and their fantasies are around either them getting abused or non-consensual sex, and it's and that that can be played with sexually, and sometimes there may be a part of you have to do. There also may have to do with trauma as well, but there's no more. I think there's no more traumatic backgrounds of people who are kinky or you're kinky than there is just in regular folks.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's sometimes for some folks, it kind of gives them their power back in a way, right? I know that I've had a lot of conversations with folks about like race play, and it gives them the ability to, reverse that role and give them their power back. One of the things I would like to ask is, people when we have a lot of marginalized voices, right? So we're talking about the LGBT community, trans folks, persons of color, and they don't seem to have. I mean, and that's one thing FTK is trying to give them is a platform for voice. But they don't seem to have a lot of platform for voice. And so what are some of the steps that they can take? Because I know that, when you're a marginalized voice, I can't relate right to that. And so what I try to figure out is how can we make sure that folks who are marginalized are getting the access to the help that they need? Are there any recommendations that you would give out there, or things that you would say to that community so that they can reach out and get the help they need or find the solutions?
Well, with I know in New York is a bit, we're blessed here that there's lots of resources for people where they can, like, there are communities that you can reach out to.
It's probably great in New York versus like Wichita, Kansas, right?
Right. Although the internet is like that's every people can find help a lot easier than they could before. It's difficult because unfortunately with I've had so many people come to see me who said that like they've been past therapists and that they were going and they'd be judged or the therapist wouldn't have any idea what they're talking about. They spend most of the time trying to educate them. And so that's so there are like people find me through psychology today, and I'm also on the kink aware professional side, and that's through word of mouth. So it's like, and anybody that comes to me, no matter what they're coming to me, I know at some point there's going to be something sexual, is going to be something around sexuality, something around kink. May not be immediately, but like nobody finds me by accident. And I'm not that like, so again, for people that just use the like standard resources, like looking up, psychology today, I think is one of the best resources out there for finding therapists. And again, anything in there, if they have like if you're isolated somewhere and you don't have any, no community at all around your kink, then it's, yeah, you got to spend a lot of time online finding someone. And again, since COVID, there's a lot more room now for people to do virtual therapy where it wasn't before.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about that, because you do virtual therapy, yes?
Yeah.
So can you do that everywhere?
I'm not sure actually. That's the truth. There is some like at the start of COVID. Yeah, the lines around like the restrictions around providing therapy outside of the state, they were all lifted, and slowly they come back. So like I don't maybe I'm not like if someone is in a different state, there might be I don't know. Tell you the truth, it's like, but I do see people who clients of mine who have moved to different states.
Okay.
I will see them. But like states, like like any licensing board, everybody just tries to, they want to make the most of their power, and they want, okay, so if you only practice license therapy in our state, you've got to license in our state. And
Okay.
it's yeah, but and I've had insurance, like people know like my practice is in New York, and so when I have built insurance companies that are out of state and seems to be okay.
Okay, perfect.
So, yeah.
So what does that look like if somebody wants to reach out to you? And that's important for us, right? So if someone wants to reach out to you, what does that look like? What does that process look like? What does that therapy entail as far as getting started?
Usually I just start straight in, like some people say, well, can we have like a quick chat, check over things, or how things, like if we click. I'm like, no, because usually you don't find out until you start. So a 5 minute, 10 minute phone call, yeah, they can find out that I'm a human and that I can speak, but that's about it. Or I can't. So I will, if somebody just call me, and we'll start, and it's usually done over, FaceTime or Skype or Zoom, and we, my first words are always, "How can I help?" And start there. And again, it may not be, sometimes it takes a bit to, for somebody to trust, because you don't want to be talking about stuff that you're ashamed of and you haven't talked to anybody else about. I might take a minute or two before it comes out, but like I'm just always welcoming, and I really do. Not that I've heard it all, but like there's not really anything that's going to be shocking, and I really am a firm believer of, like, your kink may not be my kink, but it's fine with me. And there's, so most of the, like, I have, like, the only, somebody's political beliefs are more likely to shock me than some of these kink. That's but again, being from New York, it's like, like the people I see, and it's always about, like, I have finding something that I like. For me, it's like finding something, with anyone. There's always something I can connect to. And people ask me anything. Do you like all your clients? Do you like, do you not get bored? You don't get bored, hard, isn't it? And surprisingly, it's not. I do see everybody as a human being, and pretty much I can, uh, yeah, I can say I like even may not want to hang out with somebody, but that's not the job. That's what I'm there for. I'm there to to be able to connect with somebody on in the way that's needed to be able to help. Um,
Absolutely.
so, yeah.
Absolutely. What eh, I think for some people it might be really hard to reach out and get into therapy. I think it's becoming to the point now to where, especially in the younger generations, where it's much more acceptable, right?
Mhm,
Uh, but I do have I have some older friends that are in their 40s, 50s, and there's some kind of stigma around
mhm,
getting mental help. And
yeah.
but they need it. They clearly need it. There's some of them are so wound up tight and so
Mhm,
ashamed of the things that they like, and they will talk to me because we've been friends for years, but they won't talk to anybody else about it. I have friends that have some
yeah.
really
You're
deep
closing
stuff that they won't
stuff
even
that,
talk to their
that
wife or husband about.
right. Well, that's. But they talk to you. That's like so. At least they're talking to somebody, and at some point you can slip in. That you know what, some of the stuff you're saying, I think you can get help. I think somebody else can be able to help you better than I can because I'm not trained for that. That's
Yeah,
usually I suggest to people because it can also be a burden on you because you're like it's not something you're trained as, and to hear somebody, there's nothing worse than hearing a friend who is really needing help and you want to help them and you can't do anything about it, and that's very frustrating and leaves you in a place of feeling powerless, can affect the friendship. So being able to, ship people off somewhere else and and again, it's like you're doing that in a loving way. You're telling them to be careful, but there's other people who can help, maybe help you better.
yeah, absolutely. Because DOMs aren't therapists, even though some people think they are. I know a lot of people think that
Doms
because
love,
we are not therapists, man, and so
right?
we yeah, it's
Doms need loving too. They
yep.
need
And I'm
care as
trying to
well.
get that's something that we're really trying to get people to understand because I think for a long time, because I mean, as a dominant, we take care of so much, but there
Hmm.
are times when we need to step back and say this is something that's clinical or this is something that's out of our
Hmm.
wheelhouse, and you need a trained professional. And
Right.
so let's go about that. Let me ask you that question. I know we're uh, when people are looking for a kink aware professional, that's one of the things that are the most scary for people. Because I mean, like you said earlier, in courtrooms across the country, whether it's a divorce or whether you get in
Hmm.
trouble for something or somebody reports you, I mean, kink can be weaponized real quick. You can lose your kids, you can
Yeah.
lose your job. What should people look for, and how should they go about finding someone like yourself who they can feel very comfortable that they
Hmm.
won't have any risk of getting in trouble because of what they tell you?
Hmm. Well, the first thing is use your like one thing about kinky people is you talk a lot. You've got to do a lot of negotiation, you've got a lot of communication with kink community. If there any kind of scenes. So that's one thing. You make sure you talk a lot. Um, um, and ask any questions. But like for me, certainly as a professional, I'm obligated by law. I'm not allowed to disclose anything. The only thing that I'm required by law is that you're going to kill, if you're threatening to kill yourself or somebody else, if there's uh, child abuse going on or elder abuse. Those things I am by law required to report. Um, I so like I've never, in like 20 years of doing this, I've never had to report anyone. And the then there's people who, yeah, so because and if somebody's doing something that's not legal, I'm not even required to report that either. It's like it's not. There's nothing. So when I'm there, is for if you come to me, it's because of you, and so can they trust that is again negotiation, the way you would talk with like any other person you're going to be involved with in the kinky scene, um, and and I'm hoping that it's like the like that comes across with the communication. But yeah, it's like how can I know that this person's not going to tell anyone? Well, because first of all, you can report me to, my licensing board and have me disbarred or whatever it is if if I break confidentiality. I can't talk to anybody. And I really do accept like it was needed from like if somebody wants their a family member or a friend involved, let me know. And again, it's all signed releases and make sure that nothing is done outside of that. But the trust, it takes, like with anything in therapy, it takes a bit to, for trust to build up. And that just happens through like again, that connection with, established connection and work on that throughout the therapy.
Absolutely.
And like you understand about like being a dom, it's like that is hard because like you do like who you go for prayer because it's like you're in this role where you're a caretaker. And I always think like doms they need care as well. That's sometimes it depends on what the relationship is like, the dom sub relationship. Um, Sometimes it can be done within that relationship, but sometimes not. Sometimes you need to be outside of it.
I think a lot of times that's probably the case because as dominants, when you're responsible for your submissive, a lot of times you don't want to share with your submissive the things that are weighing you down
Right.
because you're responsible. You don't want them to carry that burden. And
Right.
I think it's a lot harder for doms to say, hey, I need someone to talk to, and so we want to try to make sure that they're aware that there's people like you that truly understand. I mean, you've seen it all, you've heard it all. It's not going to surprise you. You're not going to judge them. I think they're so worried about being judged,
right. And like the thing I always remember, people on DS is that you're always a dom to someone and a sub to someone. You're not a dom to me. That might be the rule. So like I'm not there to you don't have to put on that. Don't have to be. You're not that person. You're not my dom.
Yeah.
So I'm outside of that and I can help.
That's awesome. That's awesome, John. If any one of our members wanted to reach out to you to maybe get involved in your services, let's let them know where they can do that. Where can they go? Website, social media. What would you like them to know?
Yeah,
Because I mean, I really enjoyed this conversation. I think others would as well.
My website is just my full name, johnmarchini.com, and my email is at therapy@johnmarchini.com. That's JOHNMARCHINI. Yep, there's a good Irish name.
Fine Irish.
But, yeah, but yeah, the website's all the information. Whether or not it's like I don't know the links work, but something I've been trying. It's been on my to-do list forever. But but the website's up there, and again, therapy@johnmarchini.com is the easiest way.
And are you taking on new clients?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, always. And it's a great thing. I'm like, this is it. This is my office. I don't move much from my sofa.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll put all of your links in there so people can get to you. Thank you so very much for doing this with us.
You're very welcome.
We're very appreciative of it.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll cut it. We'll cut it there, and then this will come out on the schedule. This will be scheduled for that first week of March, and then when it comes out, I'll send you the YouTube links and everything so you have it. And then I'm just thank you so much for doing this with us.
You're welcome.
We don't out of all the communities that I'm aware of. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of Kinksters. No one is really focused on trying to bring the awareness for mental health, and that's a big deal for us. So thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah. I've and actually from New York to all different types of people. This is great. My favorite guy came in one time and he says, "Yeah, I'm taking." This is my little dad joke therapy. He says I'm a foot fetishist. He says, "I know it's pretty pedestrian as fetishists go," and I thought he just I went right above his head with the message of what pedestrian foot fetishist and it's pedestrian. Okay, but that was my favorite, one of my favorite moments. Anyway,
If there's
I
anything we
will.
can ever do for you, or if you ever need something that the word needs to get out, Free the King will be glad to help you.
Okay. All right.
Thank
All
you,
the
John,
best.
so much. Have a wonderful day,
Thank you.
sir. All right,
You
bye-bye.
too. Bye. Bye, mate.